Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'm going to continue the Build It or Bench It series. We have left only Avengers and Dooms, and the Avengers' latest heroes that are left to be covered is the Salleine, the Albert, and I believe the Diao Chan. So to start off, we're going to be going with the Albert. The Albert is a pretty simple hero. His skills are really easy to understand and simple. So every increase in dodge increases his attack, which is normal for the Avengers. And when Albert is deployed, the ally skill damage increases by 30%. This is pretty nice because you often pair Albert with someone like Isis or Aphrodite, which often spam their ultimate, so overall this skill has a great impact on that. And the reason why you pair them together is because, well, Albert is also a Monarch and an Avenger, so even in the early game at 8 stars, if you have Aphrodite, you can still deploy Albert as a synergy filler that will just increase the skill damage of your other heroes, and his skills are not really something amazing, but they deal some nice additional damage. So overall his skills are pretty simple and they do benefit some heroes like Aphrodite, Leviathan, Isis and other heroes you often pair with the Avenger Monarchs. So apart from that, what is his usage? Well, you can use him in the Lost City for the Downbringers, he's pretty nice there, but more often than not you will not, because there's better Downbringers such as Lancelot the Trupus. Diao Chan, for example, is one of the best in my opinion. You can also use Katrina, Marlena as well, so but mainly Dorabella is the key part with the Trupus and Diao Chan from my experience in the Downbringers trial, so these three are key, and Albert you will only use like in the early game or something, but yeah, overall you won't be using him there. So does Albert have a future? Well, the answer is yes, he's a very good PvP hero. In fact, despite his skill for the skill damage increase, his legendary runes are one of the key legendary runes in the game. Albert's attack, defense, and max HP are increased by 20% during battle. When Albert is revived, he heals all allies for 20% HP. This is a nice part, but this is not the key part for his legendary runes. This one is though. At the start of each round, there's a 50% chance to apply Pessimism to 2 random enemies for 2 rounds. So that's the main skill you're looking at. That's why his epic or 2-2 runes are not really great, but his legendary runes are amazing, and you really do want them once you start going for the PvP. He's not the top priority, but he's like at the top 10 or 15 when you start going for the PvP route. When you have your Avenger Monarchs online, when you have the Aphrodite, the Isis, the Hecate, Hela, and any other hero that can be paired with these 3-4 monarchs in the Avengers, you will want to have the Albert Reds online, because yeah, unfortunately it doesn't say what pessimism is, but you can go to my Google Sheets doc and search for the pessimism effect, and you can see that what it does is it applies a debuff on the enemy that says can only use basic attacks and their attack is decreased by 30%. So not only in the mirror matchups, if the enemy doesn't have Albert, you have, and you're going against Aphrodite, you limit her to only basic attacks, you also reduce her attack by 30%. This is one of those very important key runes for the PvP matches that could perhaps shape up entire fight for your favor. So once he applies pessimism to enemy heroes like Hela, like Aphrodite, Isis, or anyone that spams abilities like Narissa, this could be a key change to your battle in your favor. So yeah, his legendary runes are absolutely must have when it comes to PvP, and yes, he does have a future. Now, whether you should build him or bench him is the question that is, you shouldn't be focusing on him in the early game, but you should be building him once you start getting your PvP online. His star level doesn't really matter as long as you get him to 8 stars for the Monarch, so that's all that matters, and his legendary runes. So yeah, not the highest priority, but once you start going for the PvP at around like 6th month mark, I believe, is when you should be getting his runes, like from 4th to 8th month or somewhere along those lines. You will have his legendary runes. The next hero is going to be the Salleine. So Salleine was one of those key heroes in the past because he has unlimited scaling in his kit. When Salleine receives active healing, he also receives 2 stacks of damage boost, and the limit of damage boost stacks increases by 15 for all allies. That's not it, his insane scaling comes from runes, but when Salleine receives active healing, he also receives 2 stacks of attack boost, and the limit of attack boost stacks increases by 15 for all allies. When Salleine is deployed, the limit of heal rate bonus stacks increases by 5 for all allies. So overall, he has some insane passives in his kit. He also does have insane damage, But the thing is, he has been kind of overshadowed by the newer heroes. He is no longer as scaly as before. Maybe if he was a monarch, he could have a future because he wouldn't really be dying that much. But yeah, overall, what his legendary runes is Salleine converts 20% of healing received into own attack. This has no limit. He was the first hero that had no limit to scaling, and he was the first hero that was pretty much an important key role when it comes to the Rift Odyssey. He was the most ultimate weapon to beating Rift Odyssey bosses with his legendary runes, no scaling limit, and overall all you had to do was play the battle and you would win. But back then the Rift Odyssey rounds went up to 30 instead of 15, so there was far more time to him to scale up. But after like a year and a half they changed it to 15 rounds because the servers were too laggy because everyone was running the rounds for 30 times. It was just too important and too crucial to nerf them to 15 rounds, and thus the Salleine suffered. So his place right now is non-existent, I believe. Maybe you could try pairing him with someone like Hecate because of all of these attack and damage boost, heal rate increases. But then again, I don't think he has a place, so overall you shouldn't be really building him. His legendary runes are no longer required, which is a relief. But yeah, overall you won't be using Salleine pretty much anywhere, and he's not worthy of building at all. So overall the rating for Salleine is just bench him. And the last hero on our Avengers EV tier list, or rather a build it or bench it list, is going to be the Diao Chan. Diao Chan was the last hero of all the Avenger EVs released, and she's simply the best when it comes to EVs in my opinion, after like Albert. Albert still has use in PvP, whereas Diao Chan could have but is not really used, because I believe her Enchanter synergy is what keeps her down, but I did use her a bit and she was doing great. So when it comes to Diao Chan, she has a bit more complex kit in terms of skills. When Diao Chan forms sound in the threads, dealing damage, and has 50% chance to apply Confuse one round. Confuse is a familiar effect from the enchanters, they do it all the time, but she has that on her skill as well. So also on her second skill, but that ties up to her passive skills. Each time Diao Chan revives, she permanently increases the attack of all allies by 50%. This is a really strong effect. This is why she was working in PvP for me. Permanent increase by 50% up to 500% pretty much is what it says, is really strong. You cannot disable that, and it also stacks with this one. So each time Diao Chan applies Confuse, she permanently increases the attack of all allies by 50%. This effect only triggered 10 times per battle, shared with Leaf. So you can stack her with either confusing enemies or just having your Diao Chan be dying. You get your hero's 50% permanent attack increase. This is really good for the Avengers, they really like this, and you also on top of that get a CC chain of the Confuse, and her damage is really strong. She only does single target damage, which means all of this doesn't get shared between 3 heroes, but rather hits all in a single enemy. Her runes are also amazing. When each time Diao Chan takes action, she has 100% chance to apply Confuse, so her legendary runes are kind of important because that pretty much guarantees 50% permanent attack boost to all allies. Just by her using action, this doesn't even relate to her dying per round. So yeah, overall Diao Chan is really good both in PvP and PvE, although she's not really seen in PvP, but you will be definitely using her in the Dawnbringer's Trials just because this attack boost is really crazy, especially paired with a True Push. You increase a True Push attack, which then gets shared to all of your allies. So overall, really strong hero, does a really nice damage, and is kind of important when it comes to Dawnbringers, but she does require hefty investment, similar to Albert when it comes to PvP, but Diao Chan is more of a PvE version. So yeah, overall worth building, worth investing into when it comes to PvE. For PvP, it's up to you, I will leave that to you to test. And yeah, overall, that's it for the today's Build It or Bench It series. So to recap, Albert, very good for the PvP late game with the Avenger Monarchs, Salleine, outdated Bench It hero, and the Diao Chan, very good for the endgame PvE content, and with some slight usability potential in the PvP. So yeah, next up is going to be finishing up the Dooms, and that's pretty much it for the Build It or Bench It series. I believe then we will be done. I believe I have left to cover our Merlin, Athena, and probably that's it really, Merlin, Athena, and Sylvan, because last time I probably covered the Doris, Halissa, and Snow White as far as you remember. So yeah, overall, if anything has changed for the previous ones, Mavis is kind of outdated now, but still usable for those that don't have the decked out account. Persephone with her legendary wounds is pretty great. Illyrian and Solomon are still benched heroes, so overall these two usable in PvP. Illyrian and Solomon benched heroes not usable anywhere. Thank you for watching and see you guys in the next one.